You literally won't believe what this man's hidden camera revealed to him. This has to be like literally one of the craziest stories that I've run into. 36-year-old Umar walked into his home located in Tampa Bay, Florida, one day after traveling on a vacation with his wife and his 10-month-old daughter. So he walked straight into his house and he immediately opens the window because he smelled this smell and it's just so terrible. He immediately goes to opening windows to let in air. Now, mind you, they're in Tampa Bay, Florida, so it is hot as fuck. However, Umar didn't care. He was just wanting that smell out. He kind of described the smell as a chemical smell or a paint smell. Umar and his wife Samira kind of walked around looking around for what that smell might be coming from, but they couldn't find anything. After a while, it seemed that the smell faded away, so they just kind of forgot about it. A few moments later, Umar's wife Samara called him into the kitchen, and when Umar went into the kitchen, he was surprised because his wife was looking down at his daughter, and his daughter was just really out of it. She wasn't eating, she wouldn't take a bottle, she was just really fussy. It was said that their baby wasn't usually a really fussy child, and she was usually known to eat all her food, so this was definitely out of the normal. But at the same time, Umar remembers he opened the windows. So Umar is just kind of thinking, I wonder if the hot air could be related to her being fussy, and he just kind of goes and closes the windows. Umar was almost 100% sure that this would help their 10-month-old feel better. However, it didn't. At this point, Umar and Samar are just like, let's just try to put the baby to bed. Maybe she'll just sleep it off and she'll be feeling better tomorrow. So they try to get the baby to bed, but unfortunately, this baby is not going to sleep, you guys. She is so fussy, fed up, aggravated, and they just cannot find out what's wrong. And strangely, Umar and Samara both coincidentally ended up getting headaches. So they rushed the baby to sleep and they ended up drifting off soon after. They were hoping that they would feel better in the morning, but that next morning, Samara was completely lethargic and the baby was still super fussy. Umar still had this excruciating headache to the point where he couldn't do anything. At this point, everybody's sick, so the only thing that they can really think of is this must be a bug from this vacation, and we just have to try to sleep it off. That was until the morning of June 14th. And on this day, things would take a really dark turn. So this day, Samara goes to pick her baby up from the crib, and when she does pick the baby up from the crib, there's patches of the baby's hair laying on the mattress. The baby's hair is falling out of his head. So Samara calls Umar once again, and Umar comes and she kind of shows him the chunk of the baby's hair that's sitting on the bed and a big ass bald spot in that baby head. So at this point, Samara like, we going to the hospital, and Umar like, all right. He jump in the shower, he starts shampooing and washing his head. His hair falling out too. So at this point, Umar knows he's 100% sure that whatever is going on with the baby is going on with him, and 9 out of 10 times it's going on with his wife too. Now in this moment that they're getting ready to go to the hospital, Umar just happens to remember that smell, that chemical smell. He's like, I wonder if this could have something to do with that smell we were smelling when we came home from our vacation. Umar calls the landlord and he's telling the landlord about this weird smell and how they've been sick since they came back from vacation. And the landlord is just pretty much like, I'm 100% sure that since you've been gone, no one has been to your apartment. So the landlord ends up sending a gas inspector out. They find nothing. Hazmat comes out. They find nothing. The landlord brought in somebody to check for mold. They found nothing. Even the hospital, you guys, found nothing. So now it's 2 weeks later and everybody is feeling worse. And they don't have any money to just move out this house because of the smell. So at this point, they're just stuck. Well, that was until June 25th, when Umar finally found something out that could explain what was going on with him and his family. Umar was relaxing when all of a sudden, he got a whiff of that same chemical smell that they smelled when they got back from vacation. So he picks up his phone to call the landlord, but he stops himself in his tracks and he's kind of like sniffing around to see if he can find where the smell is coming from. And it leads him to his front door. So he took a big whiff, realizing where that smell was coming from, and it just gave him an immediate sense of adrenaline. I mean, at this point, he's finally about to find out what has been causing him and his family to be so sick. So Umar gets to that front door, and the smell is the strongest at the front door. So Umar swings that front door open, and surprisingly, the smell is not strong outside at all. So Umar just kind of starts feeling around the door, just, trying to find out where is the smell coming from, and he feels a crack in the bottom of the door. And that crack gave him a plan. So Umar went to his room, he grabbed something to get out the front door, walked across the apartment to a plant that was sitting outside on a porch, and he set something in that plant that would change his life. And on June 27th, 2 days later, the moment that Umar and Samara been waiting on had finally arrived. The smell was back. But this time the smell was so strong that the baby was coughing so bad that she was vomiting. They were all having breathing problems. Everybody was dizzy. And as Samara's tending to the baby, trying to stop the baby from vomiting, Umar slowly walks over to the door. He opens the door. He walks across to that plant and he takes out what he set in that plant. He walked into his office to investigate, and when he walked back out, he had his mouth dropped and he's staring at Samara, and she's so confused, and she's basically begging him at this point to tell her what's going on. Umar looks up at his wife and he's just like, we gotta go now, get the baby, we're going to the hospital. And Samara does as told. So it turns out that 2 days before, Umar was led to that crack in the door, and when he got to that crack, he noticed that you could see inside his home and down the hallway of his home through that crack. So Umar went and he retrieved a camera that he had bought, hid it in that plant, and what it revealed to him was so insane. So when Umar watched the footage, there's a guy walking up to his front door and injecting something inside of that crack with a syringe. Placing the syringe inside that crack, he pushes down on that plunger, injecting something through that crack into Umar and Samara's home. So when Umar and Samara get to the hospital, they call 911 and they're telling 911, we need to know what this is because whatever it is has had us so sick. So then goes to the apartment and they end up going downstairs to a neighbor by the name of Zooming Lee. Zooming Lee was a 36-year-old married father of two with a PhD in chemistry. Umar and Samara always thought of Zooming as being this nice guy. He even gave them a gift when they had their baby. But it turns out that as soon as Umar and Samara had the baby, Zooming started feeling completely different towards them. It seemed he became obsessed with the noise that the baby and everybody up there was making. It was reported that even the smallest sound would send Zooming into a rage. The baby, Umar, or Samara, them walking, anything they did, it would bother him to the point where he went to the apartment complex manager, he's called the police, and Umar and Samara, they felt so bad. They felt like they were disturbing his peace, and they really did everything they could to try to be as quiet as possible, but nothing was good enough for Zuming. So Zuming got to the point where he just started going upstairs and injecting all kinds of mixed chemicals inside of a syringe, inside of the air of their apartment to make them sick. By the time they caught him, Zuming had been putting these chemicals into the air for a whole entire month. And it was reported that these chemicals, if ingested long enough, could have been deadly. If it wasn't for him setting up that camera, this situation could have turned out so much worse. And the crazy part about it is Zuming was never even convicted. Zuming was deported back to China, and it was said that if he ever came back, he would be immediately arrested. A lot of people feel like Zuming was just deported back to China because the government needs him, but he was never put into any trouble for the stuff he put his family through, and I feel like that is so sad. That poor baby suffered, and the parents suffered too. I feel like it should have been an attempted murder charge. What do y'all think? Drop it in the comments below, like the video, and subscribe, y'all. What the fuck?